Baby back, baby back, baby back. Mama, my baby back, baby back, baby back. Mama, my baby back.
Chili's baby back ribs.
Mama, my baby.
Chili's baby back ribs.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.
There's been a couple videos on YouTube about Chili's success in its specific sector of the restaurant business, where, all those restaurants, Applebee's, Chili's, Olive Garden, Red Lobster, they just were all losing money, issues with profitability, customer satisfaction. Yeah. So they had all these metrics that were unfavorable. And Chili's, their CEO came in, and who knows if there were consultants involved or experts or whatever involved, and they basically diagnosed, they looked at all the symptoms and then diagnosed the root causes in each sort of category: customer satisfaction, profitability, overall, all this stuff. And so in these videos, they talk about, well, we realized that the way we were cooking hamburgers was really inefficient. So you would go back, you would have the patty, you would cook it on one side, then you would scrape, it off, flip it over, etc. We found out that there are machines out there that can cook a hamburger on both sides. And they said, these machines are incredibly expensive, and we may not have the money to buy these machines for every single Chili's. There's like hundreds of locations across the country, but we're going to start chipping away at it, and we may have to take on debt. We may have to borrow money, whatever it is. That's the other thing. A lot of clients, it is unfathomable to them that they would borrow money to work on a video project to help them solve a problem.
It's a lot less tangible than 25 seconds per customer on a hamburger,
and that's it.
Which
Stopwatch. That immediately creates an emotional conversion, because you can show them it takes 10 minutes to cook the burger this way, it takes 5 minutes to do it that way. They can extrapolate out the savings.
What's there. 5 minutes? I'm paying an employee. Okay, we're saving X amount of
And then, Chili's looked at the menu. They saw that we had this kind of chicken finger and this kind. One's tempura, one's this. And all the time, they basically cut out all of that stuff, reduced expenses, simplified things, created more efficiencies, streamlined everything. But they also understood, there's a beating heart to this company. There's a vibe to it. We can't sacrifice that either.
Yeah.
So how do we keep the best parts of our restaurant, but create these efficiencies and all that? And they have been one of the only profitable restaurants out there. And the other thing too is, as the food quality went up, customer satisfaction went up. Man, have you been to Chili's lately?
Chili's pretty good.
Firing on all cylinders.
Right.
And that's what happens. The same thing for you as a video business. You start charging based on value, have a value-based conversation, you solve a company's problem. Man, you will not believe what these kids did with our business. They made this video. Yeah. They came in. They asked us a shitload of questions. It was really uncomfortable. Yeah. But we spilled our guts. They told us we needed to do this. We did. And it's working.
I think it's so easy to get caught up in, this isn't completely just a fake business thing. This is a real business. There's just a lot of moving pieces to a business. Yeah. But it is easy to get caught up in a bunch of everything. And sometimes it's really hard to see the core problem. And I we'll reference Steve Jobs again, because why the hell not? When he did the Apple turnaround
in the late 90s,
he might be a bit odd in how he approaches people and things and social dynamics, but he said the core of this company is a good products.
That's right.
And he got rid of all of the bullshit. Yep. And they're like, well, we still actually sell a lot of Apple IIs or whatever. We still make money on this.
And printers.
We've been killing that market. And he's like, I don't care. He's like, take it off.
Yep.
And 20 years later, they're still the biggest company, or they are the biggest company in the world. Mm-hmm. Because he was just like, you know what? We're going to do computers. Mm-hmm. We're going to have one line of them. We're going to do laptops. We're going to do these little iPod things.
And Apple, people call it the Apple tax, but Apple really charges based on the value of their product, your experience with that product. and I talked about that in a video I'm editing right now, where in college I would always make like these custom PCs running Windows XP and all that, and I was constantly troubleshooting shit. And it wasn't my build of the PC tower; it was all kinds of items, all kinds of apps that would start up on login, and like you couldn't get them uninstalled from the computer, or whatever other troubleshooting issues I had, bugs in Windows XP, all this stuff. And my girlfriend at the time had an iBook G3 running Mac
XP,
OS 10.
Though. XP was like probably the last great window. In my opinion, I loved XP. I thought it was great. Yeah.
She was running Mac OS 10, and every time I would use your computer for long stretches of time, I'm like, this is just an effortless, intuitive, simple, awesome experience.
It sold itself every time.
Yeah.
Like I loved XP, but I had some friends who had Macs, and I got my first Mac in like 2009.
Yeah.
And it sold itself.
Yeah.
Like I had a tutor when I was a kid, and she had one of those like, the bubble Macs or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just remember she would like pull that up, and I was just like, wow, this is gorgeous.
Yep.
Even then.
Yeah. So
go.
with a Mac, not only are you saving time, do you feel like things are more intuitive, but you feel better owning one. It feels good to look at it. So they look at all of that stuff and go, it's $1,600.
It raises your expectation of what a computer
for a
could
Mac.
be. Yeah.
I mean, you bought your laptop recently. I have several Macs as well.
And
but then
I will say, I do think the quality, like especially on the software side, it's getting lazier in parts. Like they have kind of. I mean, and Jobs hasn't been there for 10 years, 11 years, 12 years.
They've expanded their product.
Yeah, they're starting to do a bunch of different stuff, and it's because they're so big. Like, I honestly think Steve Jobs would probably walk into investor meetings and be like I don't give a fuck if your share whatever, like if your share value doesn't go up year over year over year over year.
Yeah.
And they can't do that now. They're the biggest company in the world. There's a lot of expectation. They have the biggest cash pile in the world. But it does feel like, especially with like iPhone updates and stuff like that, you're like, damn, this is clunky, or like this isn't like the music app isn't working.
Yeah.
Like why? Like,
are you guys actually using this?
Yeah. Like has anybody realized that the music app like is butt cheeks like 20% of the time, or like the podcast app won't work?
Right.
Or like, it's a lot of the native apps are kind of just, this is like there's half the screen is missing at all times, or so there are. I'm not just going to give them a pass and be like, oh, it's great. Like there's some quality issues that I think are starting to creep in, but all in all, it feels like they have the best cohesive experience of a brand.
Now, one thing that Apple does brilliantly is they, for each computer, have different options, different price options, where you can get the base Mac Mini, the new Mac Mini that was announced, for $599, or you can upgrade it, every single thing top of the line, and pay just under $5,000 for a Mac Mini. Without customization, you have usually three price points: $599, let's say $799.
This is a big thing that you
$1099.
Yeah. Maybe even take a step back and just kind of give the logic behind that.
Yeah. So when approaching really any pricing, whether you're a service-based company, pricing based on time and materials, commodity, or priced on value, I think without question, you should be giving your potential client three price options. We see this all the time in everything that we do, from a Dropbox subscription to Doritos at the grocery store. You can get the snack bag, the regular size, or the party size. There's an option for whatever situation you might think of. And there's
any software has like three.
Cars, there's the base model, there's the mid-tier model, and there's the fully decked out model. I mean, my F-150 has, even more than three options. There's an XL, which is like fleet and construction vehicles. There's the XL STX, which is a little bit more options. There's the XLT, the XLT Sport, there's the XLT Lariat, so on and so forth. Which you have to be careful that you don't have too many options, because then people get decision fatigue or decision paralysis. So in my pricing, especially if I price something that's a bit more of a service, Like, oh, we want to run a 30-second ad on one of your YouTube videos. Okay, well, I'm not going to just give you 3 price options for that 30-second ad, but I'll give you the price for the to run a 30-second ad, a 60-second ad, and a 90-second ad. 30-second ad is, let's just say, $1,000. 60 is $2,000. 90 is $3,000. And there's, different sort of details within that. Not only are you getting more time, but I don't know, maybe there's other value added things to each tier as it goes up in cost. But the big thing is, from everything that I've experienced with doing that and studied about the people who taught me that that's a better way to go, is it changes the way the potential client looks at you. Instead of issuing them an ultimatum, the price for the video is $10,000 and that's it. It's sort of, it's will I or won't I work with you? When you give 3 options, well, we can do a video for $5,000, $10,000, or the high-end video for $17,500. Instead of it being an ultimatum, the person on the other end is going, it's not whether or not I'm going to work with this person, it's how I'm going to work with them. Are we going to go for the base option at $5,000 that, gets 50 to 75% of what we need done, but it's not quite there. The middle option is a good fit. It's the Goldilocks thing, right? The middle option is a good fit. But now that I'm looking at the high-end option, that's a pretty good value. I didn't even think about wanting 24/7 access to the person, or I don't know, whatever the extra value-added things are. In comparison to the $10,000, the $17,000, let's go with that one. Or, when you were hoping they would take the $5,000 option, they're actually going to choose the middle one at $10,000, which is more than what you were expecting.
It's like how I always choose the middle car wash. I'm like,
the
car basic
wash,
is like,
and that's it. So you see it all over the place. But why aren't we doing that with how we price our services or our value-based expertise?
Do you think that ever backfires in a sense of? So this has always been my contention with the 3 tiers, is approaching a job from the standpoint of, you have a problem, we need to solve it, we're going to do everything in our power to solve it, and here's the price it's going to cost for us to solve it.
Yeah.
And then so essentially you only give the top quote unquote option, or the middle option or whatever. And you're just like, hey, I think part of it is that always feels kind of gamey to me.
So you want to be careful that you don't think of it always as, well, let's just make up a low cost option that doesn't fully solve their problem, so we can funnel them towards the more expensive options. What I like to do, and the evolution of that approach for me, was each option solves the problem, but there are those intangible value adds. So the low option is, we're going to solve this problem, but you have restricted access to me. So I'm available by phone, email, or text between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to respond to emails. I'm not going to respond to phone calls, anything outside of that. And it's generally frowned upon that you would try to contact me beyond an email after business hours. Whereas the high-end option is, for this premium, and I wouldn't always do this, but you've got access to me 24/7. If it's 3:00 in the morning and you think of something and you want to call me and have a meaningful conversation about it and what we're doing,
I'll wake up, I'll get out of bed.
I'll wake up and have that conversation.
Yeah.
But I would add that as a value add on the 3 options, because in the value conversation, I went, you've done videos before. What were the biggest issues you had with your collaborators? Well, they were never available. I would call and they wouldn't call me back for 2 days. Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that in one of my top options, you will get a call back from me guaranteed within an hour.
Yeah.
If I don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Well, what were the other issues? Well, they were late, or they didn't do this, or they left the location a mess. I mean, whatever it is. And you just try to kind of get a sense of what are the things that are most important to them in those sort of intangibles, where you can present 3 options that get the job done, but you can add honestly like more luxury service, more hospitality, more access to you.
A little more white glove, like, yeah.
Or it can be a time thing. Like, hey, here, like we're going to solve this issue. The low cost option, like because of the other clients that we have, we're looking at a 6-month turnaround time.
Yeah.
If you want to buy us out, we can get this done in 2 months. But we literally, like, you're going to be our only focus, and you're going to charge a premium to have direct access to us.
I think there's even benefit to the other side of that, where it's like, look, we got a lot of clients. We're going to have to rush through this project. We're going to have to get it in and out, try to do it in like a month.
Yeah.
Like, because that, like, to do the best work, we need to do this in a month and get it out and move on to the next client.
Yeah.
If you're willing to pay for the premium, we'll spend 3 months on it.
Yeah.
We'll think through every detail, and then we'll think it through again.
Yeah.
Because we have the time. Like, we will spend a day. I mean, I'm thinking of it in terms of like design. Like, we will spend a day looking at each typeface we pick. We will spend a day looking at like your company's historical values, where you want your company to go, what, like, we'll spend a week looking at all your competitors, or we'll condense all of that. You know, you get a couple hours for each one of those steps in the process, and then, you know, you'll get a product in a month. So I think you could also service it in terms of like, and I mean, yeah, you're talking about post time and video.
Yep.
It's like, we could take 6 months on this. We could take a month.
Yeah.
You're willing to pay for the premium, but I get it. You're saying it's more time based than necessarily like delivering on the it's like access and
it's other things that have value to the client based on that value conversation, things that are important to them. You know, so like if you hire the carpenter to make the walnut thing, like, well, how long do you think this would take? Well, you know, for me to do this, it's $2,000, and it's probably going to take me 6 months. Well, what if I paid you 10 and I got it next month?
Yeah. Whoa.
Because it's worth it to me to have this thing ASAP, and I'll pay a premium for you to move your butt without you know. Now, if they're going to be like, well, that's going to sacrifice quality. You know, how do I maintain the quality? What's the fastest I can get this? And because timeliness is of value to me, I will pay a premium. You know, it's like getting your car repaired. Like, well, we're booked up all week. Well, can I pay you 4 times the amount and get my car done tomorrow?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, most of us don't think in those terms, or we don't you don't have the expendable income to do that sort of thing. But think about all the times that you've gone to great expense or to have something sooner, faster, more quality, you know, whatever it was, because the value of that outcome was so important to you that you were willing to put some more risk into the situation to try to acquire it. And
I like the triangle. It's like you've got cost, you've got time, and you've got, what is it? Cost, time, and quality, right?
So good, fast, cheap is typically how you do the triangle.
Yeah, but it's like if you want it, if you want it good and fast, it's not going to be cheap. If you want it, you know, cheap and good, then it's
not going to be fast.
It's not going to be fast. Yep,
that's always how it is.
I love that.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, good, fast, cheap
relationship of looking. Yeah, and I think that's important to lay out with clients immediately. It's like, this is a good, fast, cheap triangle, and you know, you pick 2.
And just a quick blurb on another way that you want your client to be thinking. You really want to ascertain if they're thinking about what they're going to do with you as an investment rather than expense. If they're thinking of what they're working on with you as an expense, they are not a good candidate for partnership. So that's what I mean. Like, Chili's is willing to borrow capital to install these hamburger things. Like, they see that this is an investment.
Yeah, they're looking beyond the immediate.
Yeah. And the hope is that through your conversation with this person, something sometimes that's as ethereal or intangible as what a video is going to do for their business, that you can come up with a similar feeling with regards to how that burger machine is going to cook burgers twice as fast. You may not be able to nail down all of that stuff in a scientific way, but you can arrive at a mutual understanding of what the solution could be and what the value of it is to better see the cost of doing it
Yeah.
as an investment rather than an expense. So yeah, pricing based on value, having the value conversation, investment versus expense, 3 price options in your proposals. And your proposals really should just basically regurgitate what the client said to you, what the problem is, what they value, what the plan, what the strategy is to solve that problem, and why you are uniquely equipped to help them do that. And then you put those 3 price options down, typically the highest priced option to the lowest price option, and go from there.
Yeah.
And I also start out with 100% of payment up front.
Yeah.
If this is a $10,000 engagement, that's the option you're choosing. You pay me in full up front. And if they really push back against that, I'll go down to half now, half at a specific date,
Yeah.
not at like some
Yeah.
arbitrary benchmark of progress.
What I've done before is half up front, half upon essentially mock approval. So you give them the mocks, and it's like, yes, 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 no, or whatever. And then it's like, okay, we'll go in and finalize these and deliver, but you got to pay before we go do that.
And the only reason I don't do that is because a date they can't control.
Yeah.
Mock approval, they can do things that take control of getting there out of my hands.
True.
They could go on vacation for 2 months or 2 weeks. They could have an emergency, whatever.
It's
and
all
all of a
about
sudden,
setting the
well,
expectation,
you
I
said mock
guess.
approvals. That hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because of you. You said mock approvals.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, if I start this on August 31st,
Yeah.
you're going to pay me the other half on November 15th.
Yeah.
And if we're not where we need to be, it's most likely because of you.
Right. And like if it is because of me, it's like I'll take responsibility for that and adjust accordingly.
Right.
I think mock approvals within a date timeline.
Yeah.
Like you got to set
Whatever comes
you
first.
have to set a date expectation of the project starts here, the
Right.
project ends here. You hear all the time on
Yeah.
time, under budget, whatever.
Yep.
In order to serve those metrics, you got to have those metrics.
And that's a good approach too, like mock approvals, because it could be that you're working really efficiently and things are clipping along.
Yeah.
And mock approvals come in a month before the date.
Yep.
So you can say mock approvals or November 15th, whichever happens first.
Yep.
So those are good ways to approach it as well. And if when you put your terms out, if they balk at that point and it's like a lot of pushback, red flag.
Yep.
And most likely what's been happening is they have been going along with what you're saying to be polite or agreeable or act like they're down with your process.
There is some kind of like you said, there's like a mental health thing. Maybe they're conflict averse.
Yeah.
They, but typically you can feel that. I will say,
Hopefully,
typically
yeah.
you can kind of be like, they're being weird, or like their behavior is a little bit, and you can kind of feel that off, but never push a project. This is my personal opinion. Never push a project if the client's like, if you're seeing red flags.
Yeah.
Every time I've seen red flags and I've tried to push through it, I've regretted it.
Yep.
Without fail, every time.
Yep. You've got to read the room and kind of go, look, I'm still sensing some hesitation or some uncertainty here. Take some time.
Yeah.
You don't want to like, what do we need to do? What do I need to tell you? Because if you're desperate, if you have any air of desperation at all, like that's not good.
You've
either.
given up control completely too, and like you've given up credibility.
Yeah.
A little bit.
There was one other thing that I wanted to touch on quickly.
Yeah.
And
First of all, just thank you. Like this has been super helpful for me. Kind of hearing the take on these things and getting to push back, especially like the 3 pricing tiers. Like I think the kind of extra white glove service is a really good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Something that I'm a little more comfortable with and being like, oh, this is the quality you get for this, and this is the quality.
Yeah. We don't want to start off with like a half measure and then that top option is the only one that really solves the problem.
I think also one other thing,
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
just really quick on this side. And
Two things.
yeah, there's actually another thing I want to get to too. This, in terms of quality, or just if a client approaches you, I think the best, obviously you can try to solve, their problem. But if there's ever a client and they approach you and you're like, hey, this is what I have in mind. Is this price comfortable for you? It's not a science. It's not 100% of the time. Sometimes a client will approach you and be like, I don't have any money, but I have this project. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is an industry I've been trying to get into for years. Or this is a project that and if you explain that to the client, or, you are on a level of understanding, like, this is something that I'm going to do for you because, like, there's some projects, honestly, where I'm like, I would have done that for free.
Yeah.
You never want to lead with that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But sometimes the deal breaks down, or they just don't have the money. And it's like, man, this is for something I really believe in, or this is for something I believe nothing. So no, it's something that I'm really passionate about, or it's something I've been trying to do for a long time, or something similar to something I've been trying to do. That's okay. I think, to be like, okay, like, let's have an understanding about this, but I want to do this.
Yeah.
It's totally okay. I don't think it has to be an exact science.
Well, and on that, when they don't have any money, there's other ways to get paid. Mm-hmm. So
100%.
Don't have any money. Okay, well, let's talk about commission based on the value I create, especially if you're selling something.
Or value exchange.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like maybe it's a gym or something. It's like, all right, give me and all my employees a lifetime membership to this gym, and we'll do this video.
Or it's an ownership stake in the company.
Ownership stake in the
Give me
company
a share
is
in
a
the
great
company.
way to do it. Yep, especially for younger businesses that might not have capital. Obviously, make sure it's a business that you think actually has potential, or else you're just getting IOUs. But ownership's a fantastic way to do it. I know a lot of people have done that.
The commission thing is also a great way for the owner to see the value, because then they go, okay, well, if this video is going to make us an extra $500,000 in revenue, and you want a 25% commission, that's a lot of money I have to shell out. But if you were going to charge me less than that to make the video without the commission, that reframes their understanding of the fee to get it done.
Yeah. Maybe it's cheaper in that case for them to go get a loan at 2%.
Well, yeah. Well, hey, I'll take on all the risk and get nothing up front in exchange for a commission on it, which has the potential to have a much higher payout than the fees that I'm saying it's going to cost to do this.
I hijacked you. You had two more things.
Yeah,
though.
I had two more things. Now I got to remember them.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. So first thing, one thing that somebody doing video, especially if they're doing like a paint by numbers service, but they want to transition into value-based pricing.
You just literally cut off the question I had.
Okay.
That was it. That was the biggest thing. How do you go from A to B?
Well, and what I'm saying is not necessarily how do you do that, but the biggest mistake that people make in assessing what a video is going to cost, even if you're charging based on value or based on time and materials, a lot of times in the value-based pricing dynamic, you are also the designer. Mm-hmm. So it's one thing for someone to say, hey, we have a car show at the, whatever center, and we need 3-camera coverage of the panel. It's pretty easy to cover the cost of that, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I got a day of prep. I got 3 cameras. I got to get batteries. Like it's pretty straightforward.
That's also a job that's harder to value base because you can probably just go hire your paint by numbers crew
but you can still do a 3 price option where you say, like, let's do the super basic approach all the way to the high end, more luxury approach. It's going to be 3 cameras, but they're high end cameras. It's going to be a producer on set because we want someone to interface here. Like, you try to figure out like what are those luxury accommodations you can put in there that are more profitable, where instead of just charging $5,000 to film an event, you can charge $20 because the person's like, wow, they'll have a producer like get us a meal and they'll do this and they'll do that. You know what I mean? You try to, pad it that way. the thing that's overlooked often in the value-based dynamic where you're working with a client to solve their problem is you don't account for or you completely underassess what the cost is of designing the video. And that might be script, storyboards, the research that you're doing in similar videos from other places, the case studies that you're looking at from other agencies or studios that worked with this place or whatever.
Script, there's just research, the depth of writing. Like writing is always writing.
Yeah.
You got to sit down and just do it.
Or you didn't contact the people that you're going to have to subcontract or hire to help you do it. So you come up with a cost. You think the editor's $500 a day, but the editor, because it's documentary or whatever, there's more footage to go through. They're like, no, I'm $750 a day. Well, you estimated your cost at $500, but now they're $750. So you're taking a hit on your margin, even with the value-based pricing, because you didn't really properly assess what the cost is. The other thing too is with value-based pricing, before I write a proposal, if I know I need the help of other people, I position them to price me based on value. This is what I want. This is what I care about. What are the price options to have you come in and help me make this thing? Tell me what's going to make you amped to do this, because I'm just going to put it in the proposal, not a line item.
Yeah.
But it's just going to factor into the cost. I want you to get paid an amount that makes you feel you have to step up to the plate and that you have to commit to this.
And then people want to work with
out.
your company in the future.
Yeah.
Like every production company that I loved working with when I was doing that full time, when I was doing production full time, like you get to know the producers and the production companies that aren't going to fuck with you,
that aren't hammering you to come down on your price all the time.
And you as soon as that name pops up on your phone, you're like, hey, what? I'll do it.
Yeah.
Like you're pumped about it.
They appreciate me. And that's the dynamic that I'm talking about. When you work with a client that treats you as a collaborator, not an order taker, you have such a solid foundation for collaboration. And same thing happens with people that you might subcontract, film crew, designers, whoever it is. Like, I want all of us to do well in this project. I don't want to come up with a quote on my own. Oh man, $10,000. I think it's $10,000 this video. And then all of a sudden I'm asking my collaborators, well, how much is it for you to color correct, or for you to edit this thing, or for you to come operate a camera? Oh shit, your rate's $800 a day? I thought it was $500. Well, can you do it for this much? Then all of a sudden they have bad energy on the shoot because you're not paying their rate. Like it just kind of makes a little bit of a mess, in my opinion. So that's typically how I approach those things as well. And I had one other thing, but I can't remember what it is.
Do you have any resources for people?
So for me, the people that help me understand the mindset shift from commodity-based pricing to value-based pricing, we'll link them in the show notes. But there's Chris Doe, who has a YouTube channel. The Future. He's really good at that, and he's like the person that too.
I think he literally stopped his design business, and now he just does like business education.
I think so,
it was like that
consulting, content creation around that, because even with a good client dynamic, it was still sort of client work, and I think ultimately you're in service to helping someone at the top of the pyramid be more profitable and make more money, and you're an element in that process. Whereas I think he realized, well, and this isn't like necessarily a purely ego thing or arrogance or whatever. But like, well, I want to be at the top of my pyramid.
I don't think that's always a bad thing too. Like I think a great attitude to have is like, I rather be the one influencing how that looks than somebody else influencing how that looks. But
I'm just looking up the other resource that I have here.
And like you said, we'll throw these in the show notes.
Yeah. I don't want to play this, but I forget what his last name is. Jonathan. Well, he doesn't have his last name in here. There's another gentleman named Jonathan, and I'm totally blanking on his last name. But he's like a software consultant for companies like
Gotcha.
with their software systems and stuff. And he was experiencing burnout and bad client dynamics and low profitability and all that stuff. And he picked up this book, an old book from like the 80s called Value-Based Fees. It was like a guidebook for consultants to charge based on the value they create versus just like hourly rates.
Yeah.
And that's actually something to touch on too. So he was a great resource because he just has like a macro kind of philosophy mindset approach to it, and would sometimes give examples from specific industries, but he's a great resource as well. The other thing too about hourly rates, because a lot of people, law firms, accounting firms, video professionals, editors charge hourly or day rates. And because that's the industry standard, we think that that's the only way to do it a lot of the times. But to me, as someone who hires subcontractors, I tend to prefer a project rate with 3 options rather than an hourly or day rate. And the analogy I give is why Uber is so successful, in my opinion. Used to get in a taxi cab, no idea how much it's going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
Meters running. Sit in traffic, it's more
Just
expensive.
constant anxiety.
He's just constantly anxious. You know you need to get from point A to point B, but not knowing how much it's going to cost is like torture. And so Uber figured out, well, people will pay a premium to know a fixed price. They'll pay a premium to schedule a ride versus getting one on the spot. They'll pay a premium. Uber's such a perfect example.
Yeah.
They'll pay premium to have only an electric vehicle or to have a luxury vehicle.
You do have rich people who are just wealthy enough, though, to where they were in the cabs. Yeah, just sit out here for 30 minutes because they don't.
Yes.
That number could be 1,000, and they're
Right.
like, whatever.
But for the most of us, it would be like people would tell you, like, oh, you're going to Chicago, you're going to go to New York. Watch out that the cabbie takes the right, like what they're not taking you the scenic route to Jack. And that's the thing, right? When you charge somebody based on hourly rates, it's a conflict of interest. You're incentivized to make the thing take as long as possible because the longer it takes, the more you get paid. So if you're working on a project with a day rate or an hourly rate, and you're in control of how long it takes, hey man, who cares? Who cares how long it takes to get this video done? They're paying by the hour, man. We're charging $125 an hour to post-produce this video. So let them give all their notes. Let them change the scope of the project or all of that stuff. Who cares?
Yeah.
Just send them the invoice every week for what their hours were. Same thing with law offices. My accountant charges based on hourly. I'll send him all my stuff. I'm like, I
used to have an accountant that
charged
charged on hourly, and it was just constant anxiety every time you said, oh, fuck.
I literally will send off the thing that I'm supposed to do or give them the report that I need, and I'm like, I don't know what the invoice is going to be. And then I'm like, oh, it was only $125.
Yeah,
and other times I'm like, $525.
Yep.
I see the breakdown here.
Yeah.
And then it creates a little piece of shit between you and the person. Like it's just this little turd.
And you're like, you could have done this quicker.
Yeah.
And it's like,
how do I trust that you're doing
what
it?
What are you doing? Like, that's their job. You're paying them to. Also, though, like getting back to like everybody kind of just, fakes their way through and like plays business. Yeah. And this is not fake business. This is play business. Right. They're different. No, but playing, like, I think the best dynamic between a client and a company is just you're both just trying to achieve something positive.
Yeah.
Like cut out all the bullshit.
Yeah.
Cut out all the like small talk, all the little horseshit stuff that people do in business, and it's just like, look, I'm trying to do the best work I can do. You're trying to, do the best. Like I'm trying to do the best for my company. You're trying to do the best for your company, and we're gonna meet in the middle, and we're not gonna try to like have any perverse hidden incentives or anything like that. Conflicts
of interest.
And if you can do that, then you're like, just cut out the crap and be a professional.
Yeah.
And just like, look, I'll do the best I can to solve your problem.
Yep.
And you do whatever you can do to do whatever you feel like it's worth to pay for that solution. And that's it. Like that's the dynamic. And if you can get to that dynamic, cut out all the crap, cut out all the like, oh, well, this is this and this is this, and there's these rules and da-da-da.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff is just holding up the process at the end of the day.
Oh, one other thing that I put into my proposal at the end, because we can't guarantee results, and that's always like a joke with the client. If I could guarantee results, I'd be a billionaire.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing this. But what I can guarantee is your satisfaction with the engagement. So I'll put in a 100% satisfaction guarantee. You're going to be, I'll elaborate necessarily, but if you're not satisfied with how we work together and professionalism and all that stuff, I'll give you a full refund.
Yeah. Has anybody taken you up on that yet?
No, because you're in control of how satisfied they are. And again, they respect you. They understand your expertise. You're not an order taker. You have to step up to the plate to deliver. It almost guarantees that their satisfaction, because you have so much responsibility that you were seeking.
Yeah.
And when you finally have that chance to not only deliver them a result and transform their business, but to then have something that's highly profitable for you, it just is, it's almost impossible not to do it well.
It reminds me of this great thing that I heard a while ago where it was like, I was talking about the dynamic of responding to the client immediately.
Yeah.
And so many people are like, oh my God, I'll get a text. I just have to respond, and it hijacks everything. And they were talking about a solution to that is, on first interaction with that client, just set the expectation. Hey, we got your email, or we'll get, like, you send us an email, we will get it, and then send them an auto responsive, and it's like, hey, we got this. We're not going to have this like a solution immediately, but your problem has been taken into account, and like we're going to get back as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Or like even say like we'll take care of this within 24 hours. Like that's a realistic expectation, or even whatever. And he was like, when the client is freaking out because you're not responding to an email, it's usually because the expectation hasn't been set.
Sure.
Because all the client wants is to feel like their problem is being heard. That they're being heard, and they are being accounted for.
Yep.
So if you provide them with that security, that you're heard and you're accounted for, and we're going to get to it, they're not going to be upset if you didn't respond in 2 minutes.
And that's another aspect of the package options, right? If you have a client that really wants to have a response in some way immediately, that can be a premium option. Other people go on the low end option. They say, look, every Thursday, we're going to get together and we're going to go down the list of all the stuff that you sent to us. Yep. All the questions, all this or whatever. It's every Thursday at 3:00.
Yep.
And we will accumulate the list and we'll go through it all at once. And that keeps you, the person on the other end, from getting hijacked to feel like every time this client sends me an email or asks a question or whatever, I've got to stop everything and answer it. And so that can be a really effective tool. And I think that's our job on our end, performing a service or having received services, to go, what didn't I like about it when I was on the other end? What don't I like about when I'm on this side of things? And coming up with tools like a weekly meeting at 3:00 on a Thursday to go through the list, coming up with tools that make the collaboration as fruitful as possible, as tension-free as possible, and that you have managed expectations every step of the way. Again, that leads to a satisfactory experience. And maybe even the results weren't there, or they weren't there to the extent that they thought. They loved working with you. We made a big swing and didn't quite get to where we wanted. Yeah. We can do some postmortems and kind of figure out what was going on and what we might do next time or do differently or whatever, and go from there.
What do you think, like, the biggest... I'm looking at our time. This is either going to be the longest episode or we'll just break it into two. Yeah. Because we're almost at that point where we can just break it into two. So that I'm just kind of shit. I'm like, let's go ahead and just cover whatever we've got laying out there still. So you talked briefly a little bit about how to go from like A to B.
Yeah.
But like on a more practical level, like what if there might be one person listening, or they catch it because of the search or whatever, and they are kind of operating on that commodity base pricing, and they take what we're saying and it's great, but how practically do you kind of go from like you've got all your clients and like they expect a certain thing, and I mean, nobody wants to hear this, but I think it has to start with your skills and your expertise.
Yeah.
Like, do you actually think that you have something to provide that is unique to the marketplace? Right. And if the answer to that is no, then that's the problem to start chipping away at first.
Yes. I think typically if someone is considering value-based pricing or they're feeling dissatisfied with commodity-based pricing, I think typically it's because they feel like they have value and expertise to bring to bear, and it's not being heard, or it's not being valued. Biggest thing is if you have a roster of clients, let's say it's even just 5 clients, and you want to move toward value-based pricing, it is next to impossible to convert your existing clients to a value-based system. In rare instances, if you really have a good relationship with them, it's professional, but it's friendly, it's mutually respectful, all of that stuff, you might be able to kind of like go, hey, look, we've been working together for X number of years, and we have charged you $100,000 over that time. What would you say the value our work has created for your business? Is there a number that you could put on it, from the tangible to the intangible? Maybe they just have a gut check number. Like, well, I think honestly the impact you've had is around, $5 million. Like, well, you've paid $100,000 to create $5 million of results. Maybe you don't position, does that seem fair to you?
Yeah,
but that's sort of what you're
would you be all right
at.
if moving forward we changed our pricing to and nobody wants to hear that they're reliable, whatever is going up. And that client's sort of profit from you, in a sense, is decreasing because you're going to increase your fees. I think that would be such an outlier. So the ideal way to think about it is, well, it would be an outlier for a client to transition
to transition to value-based pricing. The ideal way to do it is to say, we're going to phase out these existing clients, and the next time we have an opportunity to have a value conversation with a potential client, especially if they are reaching out to us because of a referral or they saw what we did for another business and the impact it had, that we can have that value conversation and bring them on as a client that's based on value. It's paying fees based on value. And you would work with that client and, look at the client that is maybe the biggest drag on things, and either fire that client or shed that client or say you're going in a different direction, and just continue to try to replace them with value-based clients. That to me is probably the best way to go. I tried having that conversation to convert a client from the way that we were initially charging to value-based. And while it wasn't, heated or, anything like that, it just didn't transition into that.
It's kind of like, too, a little bit almost like taking. So when you're with your family, like your family always is going to see you in a certain light. Mm-hmm. I think of it like really close family that saw you grow up is always going to have a different perspective of you than a new person that you meet. And that doesn't mean that like you're different. Yeah. It's just the context that they're seeing. Mm-hmm. They're seeing, some of the stupid shit you did when you were, 13, or like when you were 20 and you did this, or like what, like there's a different context. Yeah. And I think the same can be applied for client work, where older clients, like maybe it was your first and second client, they've been amazing clients. And I'm not saying go and cut your clients. No. But, if that client is if you're like, okay, I've been doing this for X amount of time now, I've got all this experience, I am doing things this way now because I think that's going to be the best for my clients and for, my well-being, the well-being of my company, the employees of my company, et cetera. Yep. It's going to be really hard to get that client to change the way that they see you or your company.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, it's one, having the money conversation, but also just the perception of you, your expertise, your whatever. It's going to be really difficult to be like, no, I'm value based now. Like I'm an expert now, because they're like, here, and I remember when you just started this thing. And
Yeah.
like, you didn't even know
Yeah.
one from one. It's yeah.
Yep.
So I think that's an important thing to take into account.
And if those individuals again are used to you being an order taker, or the person you're interfacing with is not the decision maker, well, you know what I mean? Like you would have to can I have a meeting with the CEO so we can talk about how things could be moving forward? Well, we don't really have a problem. The problem is we just need someone to do our social media or to make these event videos or whatever it is. You're like, well, that's not really the work I'm interested in doing anymore. I want to move into, stuff that's really going to have an impact on the business's bottom line. It's riskier, it's bolder, it's more innovative, all of that stuff. So yeah, those are, conversations to consider, or you just, slowly phase them out by, we're not available for that project right now, and not a lie, legitimately working on those value-based clients. Let us know when the next opportunity is to collaborate, and we'll see if we can do that. Especially if you're not on retainer, or there isn't like some service agreement or contract or some. Obviously you're not going to just let them go if there's still unfinished business to do, unfinished work to do. So there's that too.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
It had been a golden afternoon, and I remember having the familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer.